Hey guys, so I learned about this thing called bionic reading the other day while I was doing research to expose one of Alex Jones' guys who snuck into a Torah observing group but is still practicing all of his hermetic magic. And when he does the same type of show calling himself a Christian as Alex Jones, then we know that Alex Jones is part of David Griffin's, what's the name of it? Pahrump, Nevada, has a Golden Dawn location there, and the Golden Dawn location there is a clone of the one in England that is the Rothschilds' private coven, where Saint Germain is over the top. And this guy using hermetic magic, calling himself a Christian, one of his things that was part of his taking a fake name in public was he was bionic. So I started doing research into what bionic was and figured out that the Freemasons. One sec. Okay, so we're going to let this run for 45 seconds.
Hey guys, welcome to HNS Academy. In today's video, we're going to talk about bionic reading. Now, first, let's see what is bionic reading. If we scroll down here, you can see some text here. This is what bionic reading looks like. So it basically is a way which converts your current text into this revised text where it highlights or makes bold some of the key parts of a letter in your text, so that way your brain remembers the rest of the word, and it kind of makes it easier to read the text, and it is makes your reading faster. So this is what bionic reading is for. Now I'm going to show you how you can download or add an extension.
So this is going to be part 2 of stuff about Bethel being connected to the fires. But this is why we just looked at the bio, the faster reading, the bionic reading, is because according to this spot right here, the emphasis in the article would have come from the people who wrote the article. And this is a quote from Teresa Dedman, who my parents told me that she either used to go to Little Country Church with us or Valley Christian Fellowship with us before she went over to the dark side over with Bethel, which all of them are Sunday worship, but at least the other guys weren't practicing Kabbalah. So, what else? Is there something else I need to show before I do this? One sec. Let me think before I read this.
Get out. And that's
so for people who don't know, you are a firefighter and have been.
Yes.
A professional firefighter.
I was firefighter for almost a little over 30 years. I retired 7 years ago. My background is because of my job in the fire department, I worked for the state of California. We moved to Redding in 1988 from a job transfer. My wife found Bethel, and we attended there. I was a different pastor besides Bill. Bill came in 19.
He's talking about Ray Larson, whose son, I believe his name was Brandon, was the one that was running C. Peter Wagner's ministry while he was still alive.
96, and his message to us was he was going after more of God, and he was going to pursue revival. That sounds great. You know, who doesn't want to learn more about God? I'm like, Lord. And then a couple of months after he got here, he asked me to be on the board of elders. At that time, it was a 3-year commitment. The congregation voted whether or not you would serve.
Freemasons get 3-year commitments too. That's why my great grandma's sister, Thelma, when she was in charge of the Eastern Star, it was a 3-year commitment. This is one more shadow of Freemasonry inside these churches.
Or not. And so I did that for 3 years. And during that time of 96 to about 2000, we were starting to have the Wes and Stacy Campbell, the John and Carol Arnott's, the Jim Galls, the early, they would call it renewal back then. But they were the early gang version or first generation of what that was.
The first wave of Masons that were coming into town after Bill and Chris murdered Scott and Darren. That's what happened. And that's when all this first wave of Templars and Freemasons started coming into town and taking us over.
Randy Clark came, and I think it was when Randy Clark first came, where I heard that, how many of you are feeling 25 to 50% better? Wave your hand at. And I'm like, I never seen this in the Bible. I don't know if you're familiar with how he does that. If you're feeling 50% better, wave your hand, and then, okay, keep waving your hand. We'll go after your healing. And I'm like, I just don't see Jesus doing that anywhere in the gospel, or the apostles doing that. And it's just
last July 1st, Mark and I had a great. Was it July? No, I talked to him first on July 1st, but that was his grandson's birthday. And so I waited until I think the 5th or 6th, and then he and I had a great conversation. And then I wrote him back a few days later, letting him have his 4th of July weekend and his stuff going on. It wasn't such a great reply that I got back the next time that I text him. So, I love you, dude. I didn't do anything that I'm aware of. If I did, then Matthew 18 says that you should come to me, tell me what I did wrong, and you and I can hash it out as men, correctly according to Scripture. But otherwise, I love your soul, regardless of what you decide you want to do. So we're going to skip where Mark's talking about any of the rest of this fire stuff. You guys can go and watch behind the scenes with a former Bethel elder, and this will tell you guys stuff about the Carr fire and his observations as a firefighter during this situation.
Bill asked him to be there. So,
anyway. His relationship to Bill goes back to Weaverville.
Yes.
And was he ever on staff in any official?
According to Bill and Chris's testimony, their relationship goes back at least 38 years.
Capacity or on the board at the church in Weaverville with Bill?
I don't know that. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if he was on staff. I know he was a major part of the church there.
Sure.
According to the testimony of Chris Valentin, he was on staff. You can see them talking about that he was hired as a youth pastor, and he had 8 children from the church inside his van at one point, and they talk about it on the Sid Roth show. If you guys would like to go and look up Chris Valentin on Sid Roth, and I believe you want to be looking for the one that he's wearing the dark blue shirt. Probably somewhere around 10 or 15 years ago. I'm having to guess, but you'll find it. It's still around.
But so let me see if I understand correctly that Bill comes, he's a new pastor, and almost immediately Chris comes as well. He starts
within a few months, yeah.
Okay, so he's being invited by Bill to some of the services, to actually speak at the services on Sunday night, and he's also being asked or invited by Bill to sit in on meetings where he's not officially even a part of the church, let alone no elders or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, then Chris came to the board. I think it was a while back. I think it was the fall of '96. Could have been early '97 with this idea of a.
That makes sense completely. But what Mark is about to say about Chris coming to the elders with this plan, according to testimonies that are out in public, this plan of a school was already in the works for several years up in Weaverville prior to Scott and Darren's death and Bill moving his Templar militia to Reading.
School. And my first reaction is we have a elementary school, kindergarten through 6th grade. We don't need another school. Well, this was he was talking about Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. So he laid it out. There was some discussion, pretty lively discussion about it. He's laying out what he sees it happening. My first question to him was, how much is this going to cost? Because I don't know if people realize
Remember that scripture says that the people who are divisive are the ones that are separating entire houses. Well, I don't know if this is inside these guys' testimony, but something like half the house left. Half of Bethel left because of what Bill and Chris and the New Apostolic Reformation Freemasonic Luciferians started doing to the church.
Let me stop you on that thought, because the big church I was going to here in Madison, which was very influenced by Bill and Chris's teaching, I talked to one of the pastors there who, I don't want to make the story too long, but basically, we can edit it. No, it's a tangent, but I want to talk about how what happens in Bethel has a huge influence that cannot be measured because it's not official. There's just people taking these ideas and running with them. Well, here in Madison, at this church, which had become influenced by Bill and by Bethel, the music pastor at the time took me to lunch and said, I just had a meeting with a young worship leader at a smaller church who has just started implementing Bethel's concepts and ideas. I don't know if one of the pastors went to Bethel and went to one of those training things or something, but whatever the case, this older worship pastor who I was friends with was saying, I am dumbfounded at how flippant this guy was, because their church had just been reduced into half its size in a matter of weeks, and he was proud of it. They were like, yes, a lot of people are leaving. This is a sign that we're doing it right according to the Bethel way of doing things. You get rid of all those non-Bethel people, and you kind of, get almost proud of the fact that people are leaving.
Now, if I could interrupt, I will say this. The people that left, Bill would not allow anybody to say anything bad about them. And he would say, okay, they're leaving because of various reasons, and we need to not speak evil. So I applauded for that. He says we need to bless them because they're trying to find their way. So I give him hats off to that.
And that's an example of, it's good that he does that, absolutely. The point that...
Okay, I want one specific clip, so I'm going to pause this and go find it for you guys.
Be totally wrong. That's just what I've seen there.
We need this part too. We may as well grab it since we're on this video.
I'll send you that picture I was telling you about it. When you walk into the lobby of Bethel Church, you see this huge banner picture, and it's from Chris Valentin, why they have to build a new church. You read it, it's just all about us and what we got to do, and this and that. And there's nowhere in there is there any biblical reference, or it's about world changers and building leaders. And I'm like, I'm also to the point
the new building that he's referencing is the one on, it starts with a C. I don't remember what the name of the street is right now. It's over by Shasta College. Anyways, so, its physical address is on Collier and Twin Tower Boulevard, because the Twin Towers have to do with the occult stuff, even though the Twin Towers used to be the KVIP radio station, and that's the real reason that name is there. But the occult, the Twin Towers, has to do with the 88 portals for ripping the Lion's Gate that has to do with Bethel's Alabaster Prayer House also. So, at the location that is called Twin Towers and Collier, where they are building the new 88-degree Lion's Gate portal, if you look at the roof of the building, it is another octagon. Go back and watch the videos about the pyramid in the octagon. Go back and watch the video about how Bethel's Alabaster Prayer House is on ley lines, it's designed the same as all the other Templar buildings, and it's in the same astrological locations as all the other buildings because they are Satanists. So, this is what we have to do, is we're going to listen to Mark a little bit more. Hold on.
I enjoy calling that stuff out.
It does take certain types of personalities. The kind of person you want to have. Well, if you imagine a really effective board of elders, there should be somebody who's really good with numbers, who's very detail oriented, very steady, that kind of a scientist, researcher type of person, engineer. But then you also need to have somebody who's kind of a skeptic, who says, that doesn't seem like a good idea. Can we question this a little bit? There needs to be the composite of a board of elders should have all those personalities functioning together.
Okay, let me go find the part about the banner that Mark took down.
And I looked at
like there's a democratic process going on when there really isn't.
That was actually a good place to cut in, actually.
and again, I was a great example of what you're saying. And I looked at a lot of what I saw and compared it to my career as a firefighter. So I'm on a large fire. We got a 1,000-acre fire. I can't see what everything's going on. Okay, so I'm going to put Steve Kozer up on that ridge with a portable radio. And I'm going to say, tell me what you see. And if there's anything going on that I need to know about, let me know.
Hey, Mark Mack. God put me up on top of the ridge in our town where I can see what's going on. And I told you what was going on, and you shut me down and cussed me at the end of it, putting Foxtrot Yankee as your last reply in a text message. That's no bueno, senor. I love your soul. Just come back and not be stupid like that. We're good.
And if you're just going to sit there and say, yeah, it's all great, you got spot fires and you got flare-ups and you got, there's a problem. You're not telling me, shame on you.
Yeah.
But if you do tell me, hey, we got a problem, and I don't do anything about it, that's on me.
Interesting quote, right? That's the reason that I reached out to Mark, because he was saying he needed people who could spot the fires, and I'm the one with 15,000 hours of research into the New Apostolic Reformation and their Freemasonic connections inside Reading. I believe I'm the only quote-unquote Christian truther in Reading that is exposing Bethel, so far as I know, at least. So...
Spider analogies.
Yeah, well, one reason is every time throughout the country, if there's a fire service major injury or death, there's always an investigation. They've also come up with common denominators of tragedy on fires. And
okay, did you guys see what he just quoted?
There's always an investigation. They've also come throughout the country. If there's a fire service major injury or death, there's always an investigation.
If there's a fire service major injury or death, there is always an investigation. Now, when I had the conversation with Mark, this guy right here in the picture, he told me that he was around at Bethel at the time of Scott and Darren's death. He said he didn't understand why Millville Fire Department called them off, even though their fire department did have the rights to call them off. They could have been there quicker. Mark also mentioned that it was very odd the way that the Millville Fire Department even came into existence, the way that the fire chief bullied himself into that leadership position. Mark told me that during Scott and Darren's death, which he was around at Bethel at the time, that he had some questions about how things were handled during the boys' accident. The temperatures were so low on New Year's Eve, 1993 to 1994, that the water temperature where the boys were at would have been close enough to freezing that their bodies, the same way like if somebody slips in the lakes up in Michigan and gets hypothermia, but that keeps their body alive by going that cold, nobody attempted to save my two friends so the firefighters got the two boys out of the front seat and left them laying on the bank for 45 minutes without any medical stuff at all, according to Mark Mack, who is the one that told me that things didn't add up the way that firefighters are supposed to respond to situations. They did not in this situation, and he told me that this firefighter always is wearing his Masonic ring everywhere he goes. So, one more piece of the puzzle for people to understand when I make the accusation that this was an actual human sacrifice for Bill and Chris to become 33rd degree Freemasons.
They've also come up with common denominators of tragedy on fires. And the big one, there's a lot of them, but they call the number one thing is lack of communication. That's in every incident of firefighter fatalities, be it on a wildland fire, a house fire, a Walmart on fire, there's something happens because, and a lot of times you'll hear the investigators quote, there was a lot of talking, but there was no communication.
Boy, this is so true in a church, in a marriage, in a family,
Yes.
in a business. Communication, yeah. The ability to freely communicate what you really think might be wrong or what you really think might need correction.
Yeah. So I'm seeing all that. It's just not sitting well with me, and I'm just like, oh. So when my time for the board was over, I was done. I don't want to be involved in this because in my opinion, I could see where it was going. There was going to be a bunch of people, good guys, but they're all going to go yes sir, 3 bags full, no matter what, you know. And I'm like, I can't do that. I have to have input from different sources telling me this is what's going on. You know. So speaking of fire, and Chris was it was
2017, 18?
2018, summer 2018.
The Carr fire.
Okay, this is what we want the information about. Remember that Bethel has both groups, one that's called Fire Starters and one that's called Ash Out. Fire Starters, they claim, is supposed to be a condensed version of BSSM that you can do in a short amount of time at the church. I believe it is Sunday mornings, and you can do the whole BSSM in a condensed version on Sunday mornings, and they call it Fire Starters. Now, Ashed Out is another thing that happens where after the fires, Bill Johnson and his cult go and dig through the remains of people's burnt down houses, claiming that they're looking for things for the people to keep, but based on their habits that we've already established, my conjecture, based on their habits of grave soaking and all the other necromancy stuff they're doing, those people are looking for dead bodies to do rituals with. Comprende?
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean,
2017, 18?
2018, summer 2018.
The Carr fire.
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, I was retired by then. My oldest son works for the state. He's with Cal Fire. He was on that fire. So rabbit trail, when I hear all these people, the dead men saying how they made declaration, all these other intercessor type people saying, we decree.
Teresa Deadman, that's who we're going to end up reading her decree that he is referring to right now.
Even declared in the fire. I hear all these people, the dead men saying how they made declaration, all these other intercessor type people saying, we decreed and declared the fire no longer was a threat to Reading. Like, look, my first question, why did you wait until the fire threatened the city? Why didn't you make your declarations that very first afternoon? Why did you wait? Secondly, what you're claiming that the fire no longer threatened the city and the wind stopped is patently false. There are, I'm told, there's 14 days of documents showing how the city was still under a threat after that fire tornado had gone through and caused all the damage. And then, did I send you that screenshot of my son? Because he was involved in this. And
yeah.
And he says, all you people that are trying to get into second heaven to fight the fire demon, if you get stuck, you're on your own. We don't have.
All the people trying to get into the second heavens to fight the fire demons. The second heavens is where I showed you guys that the Ascended Master Saint Germain has the ethereal temple of Melchizedek over the top of Mount Shasta. That's his temple. That's Lucifer's temple over Mount Shasta in the second heaven. These people are trying to claim that they're going into the second heaven to fight the demons.
Ladders fallen, involved in this.
Yeah.
And he says, all you people that are trying to get into second heaven to fight the fire demon, if you get stuck, you're on your own. We don't have ladders tall enough. and so it kind of hit home. He's out there putting his tail on the line, and he was telling me things like, I've never done that in my 30 years. No. And it was like, and I'm grateful for everybody that prayed for the firefighters and the law enforcement, but hearing him tell me this, and then he sees this nonsense about declarations, it really made him angry and frustrated him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I had to tell him, look, don't even look at that right now. You've got a job, your crew, your fire engine, you just concentrate on that. Don't be distracted by this, because otherwise you're not going to be effective.
Yeah,
as a dad, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
As a dad and as a retired firefighter, that just frustrated me. Rational person came up to me and said, that fire tornado was a demon. I go, no, it was a vortex of wind called a tornado that just happened to occur on a fire. And I said, if you look at all the weather data and all the other factors, geography, temperature, and everything, it all combined to become the perfect storm.
What the person was saying when they walked up, calling it a fire demon, it was a demon that was possessing somebody who was under hypnotism, who went out and was really starting the fires. Even though they claimed that it was a trailer that had a flat tire that was just past the halfway mark going over Whiskeytown Lake, and or somewhere up in that area, and it was a trailer that started it. The number of spot fires that started way away from the original fires in an amount of time that would not have ever been able to happen naturally from the spreading of the fire. If you go back and look at the times that the spot fire started, you can see that there was assistance from people in the starting of the fires. Now, inside Bethel's group right now, we call them the New Apostolic Reformation. Prior to that, they were the Latter Rain movement. Back when Bill Johnson was following William Branham, his group was called the Manifest Sons of God. And the Manifest Sons of God are the fallen angels, and they believe that they are supposed to channel the angels, and they are supposed to carry out the wrath of God in the end times. So the Manifest Sons of God believe that they are supposed to burn 1/3 of the earth. Comprende? And that's the original teachings from William Branham, that even if the Bethelites now are unaware of it, that's what we are seeing is the Manifest Sons of God, the scriptures talking about that they are going to burn 1/3 of the earth. 5 years after the fire, the McConnell Foundation, who built our penis worship bridge in town, the Baphomet worship bridge in town, that cost $26 million, now they want to come through our town and cut down every single tree on the property 5 years later, which means that now our pioneer species of trees are not being left in place, and the roots, I forget what that thing is called. They have special stuff on the roots for a bunch of the black locust that makes it rhizomes on the ends of the roots that make it so that other plants can thrive after a fire. And now 5 years later, McConnell wants to take out our good trees and claim that they're bad and leave us with flat property with no trees on it. Okay?
And they're like, no, it was a demon. I go, no, it wasn't. It was nature. He goes, well, it's a demon because we've never seen that before. I go, we've never seen it recorded. Doesn't mean it's never happened.
Yeah.
So,
I've used that clip in some of my videos, the Fire NATO, because of these, Heidi Baker always fire. Well, you got your fire. They want fire, and then they don't want fire. Make up your mind, people, because we gave you a Fire NATO. You should have been thrilled.
so during the Carr fire, the church asked me. I think Bill was out of town, Chris was out of town. There was it might have been Dan Fairley or somebody said, we're thinking about opening the church as an evacuation center, one of the evacuation centers. I said, don't do it, because first off, Interstate 5, which the church is right next to, is the big four line. That was a contingency line. And I said, if we get another tornado event, we're not in good shape. Plus, there's only one way in and one way out of that church, and that's not good. So they decided to become a distribution center for the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, to accept donations for the people that lost their homes. So they asked me to be part of that. In a sense, I was just going to advise them. This is what the fire's doing, and this is how you can schedule your week. Okay, because they shut down services. They didn't have any Sunday morning services, and they shut that down so that people could come in. And hats off to them for that. Side note: one of their classes they teach on Sunday mornings is called Fire Starters. And so we're letting all these people in, and there's this huge sign, Fire Starters, this way. I took the sign.
Side note: Mark took down the sign that would have given us the hint that this was an inside job that's done by the hypnotist using EMDR to be able to hypnotize people. So Sozo is being used to hypnotize people. That's the reason why that kid just burnt down the apartment, who was talking about Shekinah, who his dad and his brother were both part of Bethel. If you go and listen, he said that he made a Molotov cocktail inside of a watermelon and then threw it to be able to purify his apartment. These guys, he was under some type of hypnosis that made him think that he could take out a demon using a watermelon. We have the proof of that from recently. It's on the channel. And now, right down the street from my house after this, I believe 2021 maybe. So we had the bear fire, we had the fawn fire, and the fawn fire was some super smart lady with all these degrees who came stumbling out of the woods and looked like she was drunk. But if she was coming out of hypnosis, then she would look the same way. And they said that she was dehydrated, which means that she had been out there long enough that she was dehydrated. So if she had been hypnotized into starting the fire, left there to start the fire, and then stumbled out of the woods, it would make good sense, because that's what happens inside this cult.
Classes they teach on Sunday mornings is called fire starters. So we're letting shut that down so that people can come in, and hats off to them for that. And side note, one of their classes they teach on Sunday mornings is called fire starters. So we're letting all these people in, and there's this huge sign, fire starters this way. I took the sign and I put it in a closet. I go, oh no, no way. First of all, there is no class today, and we are not putting.
Mark identified the buzzword that they would need to be able to put a person who wanted to be under hypnotism. Fire starters. That was the buzzword that made the person want to be part of the manifest sons of God, to be one of the hands and feet to accomplish the 1/3 of the world being burned. You guys watched Canada burning just now, right? 1/3 of the world is supposed to be burned, according to scripture.
A sign out to people that just lost everything. Okay, bad move. So, I mean, that's kind of a humorous thing, but I was there just to advise them. And after I think about a week, Bill was able to get back in town. Eric got back in town. Chris Kent got back in town, so stuff like that. Well, about week 2, as Chris and I are chatting, or we walk by in the hallway, he's making these little comments about, "Oh, we're not going to need you much longer. We don't need you." And he would look at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I'm, well, and I had a little name tag they put up with, and it said technical specialist, which is, and the reason I had him put that is because that is a title that fire service people would recognize. They wanted to send someone to the fire camp, to the incident base, to just update what the fire team, what Bethel was doing. They were going to call it the testimony pastor. I said, no, you want to call it a public information officer, because that's what they recognize. We need to use terminology that everyone will recognize. So I had this bad saying technical specialist, and Chris kept saying, "What is that? What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm just advising." The point was, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Well, it's technical, but it's special." And it drove him nuts. It just because this was an area he could not control.
Interesting.
It was he had no, and I wouldn't expect him to have any background on fires,
Mark just said it drove Chris nuts that he could not be in control of this situation. We already have the video that proves that Chris Valentin is a DSM-5 certified schizophrenic, and he cannot control his anger. And if he was mad at my friends, or wanted to be able to control their parents using MK Ultra hidden inside this cult, they could easily give my friends a car that they drive off of a bridge, and then they sneak in Sozo to be able to control my friends using brainwashing techniques, making themselves into the heroes and my friends into victims, which is exactly what happened. As we watch this cult continue to march through our town and take over our town in the name of their god, Lucifer. So instead of reading the stuff that's inside that A News Cafe thing about the fire and Teresa Deadman and what she was decreeing, just remember bionic reading. Go back and watch the very beginning of this video if you have to remind yourself of what bionic reading is, and then go and read the A News Cafe link that I will put inside the comment section at the top, pinned comment for this video. love you guys. This is part 2 of the Carr fire connected to Bethel.